So this is what it looks like after the morning after the show. Boy, what a great show. So now I'm going to spend probably half the day getting this stuff all put back together, and there might be some things that need to be repaired. Gosh darn it, it was just so crazy getting out of there. So today I'm going to get all this jazz put back together. So I've got everything out, and I just have to go over everything. Everything looks good, but there's little things, and frankly, it's something I did. I like snapped off the barrel, or there's some little cracks. This is the last box I've got to do. This is Kasserine Pass, and I think it was packed pretty good, but I kind of cleared this corner to put something in there, and ended up damaging a little bit. Hello, everybody. I'm here. Can everybody hear me? This is just kind of the end of an older video, and I thought it was kind of fun because it shows how I kind of prepped and even kind of after the show, kind of some of the fixing up of stuff that I did. But that's on my website. You can see it later. So why don't we go ahead and do this and then do that? And hello, welcome. And thank you very much for coming in. I got another couple of things I could do some housekeeping. This banner, it needs to go. Let me do that. And thank you very much for coming in. We are going to talk about, gosh, what I've been doing. I hope to hear what you've been doing. Oh my gosh, First Last was talking about, they had an earthquake this morning in New York. I've been, kind of prepping and doing stuff in the shop this morning. I had no idea. So I'm very sorry about that. And I'm so happy you're okay. Obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but I mean, I live near Seattle and we get them pretty regularly. But they're like low and stuff like that. I don't care how many I've been through, and some have been pretty significant. It's such a strange thing. You don't really kind of connect with it right away. Me personally, I don't think that I immediately know. There's this odd sense of just what is happening, and it may be a split second. It may take longer for some folks. I remember maybe as a kid, what the heck is happening? But even if you've been through, I don't know how many I've been through in my life growing up here, but it's always a surprise. So, man, I hope it's okay. You'll probably see a lot of PSAs and stuff about kind of securing things in your home and how to do that, large cabinetry and stuff like that. I hope everybody's okay. And like I said, I'm going to look that up after the live stream. But thank you very much for coming in. That is so great that you even took the time to come in. I really appreciate that. John Reynolds is here, or John Reynolds was an old guy I worked with years ago. John Robeck is here. Whelans Schmidt is here. Schmidt, is I'm saying it? Whelans, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to make sure that I don't say your name incorrectly. But thank you very much for coming in. It's wonderful to see you. Thanks very much. Scott is here. Hello, Scott. Thanks very much for coming on. So I am gonna, talk about what I did. Again, I'd love to hear how you've done this past week. You were busy feeding the deer. That's fantastic. Wink. We kind of feed deer here a little bit too. Some people don't like it. We have apples and we throw them out there sometimes, and the deer love it. So we have deer on the property all the time. So thank you, and again, and welcome. So we're going to talk about kind of what I've been doing. I said that like 4 times now. But the fun thing and the thing that I'm really excited about is I finished the shuttle mirror project, and we're going to look at some pictures about that. And I did some things that I'm pretty happy with that are going to make sure that it's very secure in the future. The museum will be able to do what it needs to do with it, but also when it gets returned to Texas, that model that I worked on, and we're going to look at pictures here in a minute, that's going to work out fine for them too, the transfer, everything. So I'm pretty happy with how we did it. But this is WW1 Trench Diorama, and over there in the corner is Emma, Carlos, and Ichiro, and I can pull it out a little bit more as we go. Emma, Carlos, and Ichiro, I'm sorry, I kind of run through that sometimes too quick, but I love that diorama. It's one of my favorite dioramas. I mean, it's weird. As a creator, as somebody who makes models, you create stuff. Sometimes you really get invested in it. You fall in love with the thing, and I don't think that's bad because I think that helps hold your interest in it and stuff like that. Now that can also become an attachment where you don't want to ever get rid of them. Case in point, but I think for me at least, it helps drive the length of the diorama. I'm working on these things this is 8 months. It's the 9th month, but I took a break since I started working on this. And it's easy to get a little bit distance from it. It's easy to find other interests in that amount of time. It's easy for other things to come in and take your time away from something like this. So there's got to be something pulling you to kind of keep working on it. And I think that is, just honestly fall in love with it. You love your creation, and that keeps you wanting to work on it, improve it, do whatever the heck you're doing. So I'm going to get back on that, and I'm thrilled. I'm going to get back on Emma, Carlos, and Ichiro because in preparation for this show, which is the 2024, it's the IPMS Seattle Spring Show. It's not right in Seattle, but I mean it's just right next to Seattle. And it's a really fun show. It's a large show. It is a judged show. And I've been to it 2 or 3 times now. Two, three times. And I'm sorry, 2 times. And one time I competed, one time I didn't. They used to have a where you could just display only, which is my prior preference. But now I'm actually, yes, I do want to compete. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Talk about how you prepare not only your models to go, but some of the secondary things that you might forget. I know I did. I'm not a hugely experienced model show, where you actually compete and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that are a little bit important. I want to just cover those real quick. I would love to know if anybody is planning on going to the shows. There are shows all over the place. There are shows for all kinds of things that you might want to go see, but also shows for all kinds of media, all kinds of subject matter. And so I think this would be helpful because I'm also going to talk about some things that I packed just for kind of moving, but weren't for a show. So anyway, why don't we dive in? I am going to show you this, which is I don't know what the heck. Talking is difficult. There is the 2024 Spring Show. And again, it is 22 days away. And for me, with models, I think it'll be a little bit easier to plan that time. And I want to talk to you about like that, what I want to accomplish and things like that, and the things that I need to kind of get done before I tend to show. So we'll go into that. I'm taking the WW1 Trench Diorama. It is about the Levin's large gallery flame projector. And I like to do this now because I'm getting more folks that haven't been here. Hey, Corey is here. I want to say hello to Corey real quick. Hello, Corey. I'm trying to get my mouse over here. Oh, Corey says, how's it going, Bill? Love the tutorials, man. You're the best. Thank you very much. I'm just like sucking up here because somebody says something really nice and I have to throw it on the screen. I hope I'm not, being disingenuous, but I really do appreciate you coming on, Corey. So thanks very much. But yeah, so this kind of stuff is, let me go back. I'm wonky. This is just the stuff that I want to kind of show people that are kind of new to the WW1 Trench Diorama. This is one of the main subjects of it. And then that is the general look of the diorama. So anyway, I'm sorry about that. I'm a little scattered today. So repairing the shuttle mirror model. This week, I finished this up. I talked about it last week, and I had kind of put it together. I kind of got all these elements together. But this picture right here is something I really want to go ahead and kind of highlight. The issue here is this. I'm trying to find the deal here. The issue is, that's not what I want to do. Sorry. I'm very confused. When I put the mirror together, it had been broken and repaired many times. And in doing so, what had happened was people were kind of stacking it. There was no central core going up this. I mean, there was coming up from the base. There is a brass rod coming up from the base, and that kind of goes up all the way through. And you can see there's a support one there on the left hand as well. But those were very wobbly. They were just tubes, brass tubes, and they weren't supporting this thing very well. It's resin. It's a little bit heavy. And so I needed to do something to kind of, shore this up, something to get a little bit more strength in there. And I didn't want to have it out because I've got a young cat and he's not as familiar with these things. So I've got that tucked away. But I do have a video that I want to show you about kind of, some of the problems and then how I solved them. And so we're going to look at that. So I'm going to throw this up here on the screen. And this is the base, basically. The base has these 3 pins And those 3 pins, they're mounted in there, but they're not solid. They're just tubes. What had happened previously is something had either been dropped on it, and that's how it was broken, or whatever. But both of those, the two on the left, the main support there, were bent. So what I did is I mounted it in the base, really solidly mounted in the base, and then I took, just like here, there's a little core going through there. I put a core down the center of both of these tubes. Now, by doing that, number one, it helped straighten them. I mean, I rolled them to straighten them. And is everybody, or I guess I shouldn't say is everyone, but do you know how to straighten like a tube that's a little bit bent or something like that, or even a bar? Rolling is a really effective way to do it. And so when I'm working with wire, when I'm working with this brass, solid bar, it's thin, but what you can do is you can roll it. You have a very stiff, straight piece of wood. I tend to use this. And it helps me by having a straight, flat piece that I can roll on the bench over that tube, and it straightens it pretty darn well. You can anneal the tube as well, which is heating it up to a point and letting it cool. And then it's a little bit softer, and then roll it, and then you can heat it up and then quench it, and then it gets really brittle. So there's a whole process there. And with brass, you have to be very careful, but it's possible. And if anybody's interested in that process, I can show you sometime on like a little video or something like that. But the point is, I didn't have to replace anything on this, which was rad, but I was able to go ahead and straighten them and then strengthen them by putting another core of brass down the center. So I was pretty happy with that. That strengthened it up quite a bit. And then I was able to take, and I'm going to try to go to my pictures again. Then I was able to take some of that same, because I had the same kind of tubing that they had used, the same inner diameter, and make sleeves to put into the individual pieces. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I got to swap this for that. This is the inner diameter is 1/8 of an inch. And so what I did was I took that 1/8 of an inch bar, put it down the original tube. I drilled out, because all of these pieces weren't drilled all the way through. Some of them were, most weren't. And so I drilled them all the way through and then put sleeves. So this is one of the sleeves. I took the appropriate size sleeve, and they don't go all the way through. It's just a little sleeve to protect the resin. These are all resin cast, and that will allow it to slide on and off and also be very, very stable. And so I'm really happy with that, because that allowed me to put it back together. It's all now quite stable. And then I started working on the stand. So basically, what I'm charged to do in repairing that shuttle mirror deal was, somebody else built it. And honestly, I don't know how many years ago it was, but it's been in a Texas museum. It was shipped up to the Seattle Museum of Flight. They wanted to put it on display. It had been damaged. I mean, it all came in boxes. We talked about that last week. And well, here's a picture. I can show you a quick little picture. Sorry, I have this stuff all ready to go, but this is how it came to me. And so I just had to figure out, number one, to get all the solar panels on it, and then try to put it all back together. There was no, I didn't have instructions, but gosh, the diagrams that I had that they gave me, that I also found online, were pretty darned easy. So when I went ahead and put it all back together, and I hadn't put that straight one singular shaft that goes all the way through it, everything was like this, right? Because previously they had been pinned, and each individual piece had been glued to it. So this one was a little bit off this way. The next piece was a little bit off this way because I think it had probably been repaired multiple times. There's signs of glue all over it. And so that was something I was really cognizant of. I didn't want to do any changes that you could see, you know. I wanted to cover my tracks basically, but kind of engineer a little bit better method to get everything on that singular center line, number one. And with those sleeves, it can still be removed. It's not locked. I keep looking back here because it was back there, but it's not locked down. I didn't, hard secure everything. So it'll be able to travel on the base, which is what I'm going to be doing next week with it, and delivering it back to the Museum of Flight. But didn't change it, painted it up, just little places here and there where it got nicks and stuff like that. Did not change the original idea that the original artist that put it together done. The base needed some work. It's a beautiful piece of walnut, but had some nicks, had some gouges, had some scrapes. I used a little bit of what did I use? It's wipe on poly. Gosh, sorry. Wipe on poly, just used like a Q-tip, just the nicks, just the little kind of scrapes and things like that. I didn't want to refinish the thing because it would be virtually impossible. I couldn't get all those pieces off. It was very, very difficult. What I did need to do was take off 3 of the little emblems, the little flight, pins that they come up with, and it looks like the patch, but it's a little pin. All of those are mounted on there. Well, 3 of them were knocked off or something like that. I remounted those, used a little Goo Gone, take it off, worked great. And then I put down the wipe on poly or wipe off poly, whatever, wipe on, wipe off, I don't know. And it worked great. Works beautiful. Everything looks good. And I think it looks kind of, like the original person wanted to look. The original bars are showing. You can't even see the inserts that I put in them. I just think it's really cool that I was able to do that. I'm not trying to say I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm just really happy that I was able to do it and not mess with, the person that built it, their kind of thing. I don't know. I'm rambling, I'm supposing. So anyway, I got a couple of comments here. Hey, Mark is here. So Jacob, hello. So we said hi to Corey. Jacob is here. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is doing great. Hello. Thanks very much, Jacob. Mark is here. Hi, Bill. Interested in another repair project? No. But now, wait a minute. I think your house got rebuilt. I'm joking. Boy, that was a bad joke too. We'll talk though. And John says, great repair, nice solution to keep it both stable and easy to disassemble and reassemble. Yeah, and that was kind of the thing. I didn't want to change the original look. I only wanted to get it back to the way it was done. So, Mark, yes, we should actually talk if you have something, because one of the things that I'm going to show today in like the packing up section is how to do packing up of a very odd thing. I did these ships, and so I can talk a little bit about that. That is one of the repairs. So yes, of course I will, but man, the repairs, this one was super fast, but sometimes they really take a long time. I've used a similar method in sculpture to key limbs and heads on the body of the sculpture. Yeah, and I think, when I was doing, I was trying to do some movement in wood, and I needed like a bushing, and I didn't have any bushings. There's typically bronze or something like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, this will work. There's not going to be a lot of stress on it. And so I started doing that. I was like, man, that works so well. And so if you can find, a brass tube ID, OD for your bar, it just works great. And it doesn't need any lube or anything like that. It's just great. It just worked wonderfully. So thanks very much. Let me please go over here and see what else I got to show you, because eventually I want to talk about what I do in preparation to get things, to go to the show. So I'm going to swap over to there and see what I have lined up. Yeah, there was a little bit of this is what I was talking about, where I kind of clean those up. There's the goo, and I was a little bit worried to get this on the acrylic. Goo Gone is actually just mineral spirits, and so it works really well. and I just used just a little bit on a Q-tip, and I was able to get everything off of there really, really well. These two, even on there, took it all off and then remounted everything. And there you go. So it's done. So spring show prep. Here we go. What I'm doing is I'm bringing this. Does anybody remember this? This is Emma, Carlos, and Ichiro. This is my first machining Krieger diorama, and I'm super excited to start working on it. This is Carlos, and Ichiro is in the background. Here's Ichiro. And so I'm really, really excited to start working on it again. And one of the things that, I wanted to highlight about prepping for a show is like registration and looking up for placards and things like that. And so that's what we're going to talk about here in a second. The other thing, of course, is my WW1 Trench Diorama. Now this thing, it's been my life for the last 8-9 months. It's not 100% done. I still have some things to do on it. I still have the 8 figures that are awfully close, but they're not done. I haven't finished their weapons. I mean, that kind of thing. Get them mounted in there, and how is it going to be presented and stuff like that? Because what I have not done, and what I have not done for Emma, Carlos, and Ichiro either, is placards. John knows exactly what this is. Scott knows what, some folks are, but basically what I like to do is put a little note or a little placard, somewhere on the diorama to kind of explain what's happening. I always said to myself, I really want to try and, work with the dioramas, work with the things that I have, so that you don't need something, to understand it. But I found that people were a little bit more, they really appreciated having a little bit more information. They're looking at it and they have questions, and that stuff is fun to kind of get those. And I did find, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. The one that I did on the most was Wolfenstein, and these didn't make it. They're a little dusty, but what they are just, I printed out on just regular paper some neat things, a little storyline that explains each thing, each location in the diorama, to give a little helping hand, to give a little bit more clue as to what the story is going to be. And when I did that, I thought it was fun, number one, for me, because it helped me see what the story is and create this whole storyline. The other thing is, people then could find other things that were interesting, because here's this little sign, right? They're like, well, what's going on here? Well, there's a sign. So then they start looking for the signs to explain so you know what I'm saying? That, I think, worked pretty good. I just stick it right on there. And I size it, and as I did on Wolfenstein, I size it to the sides where I want it, and the kind of the story that I want to tell. Well, and then after it's just printed and I figure out what they are, I just put them, the backing is just some thin plywood, 1/8-inch plywood, kind of black in the sides. I cut them after they've been printed out and glued to the wood. I'll take them through the either the saw or the bandsaw. Typically the table saw is going to give the best cut. And then I have these really nice signs. You can make them stand off by having a little, some of that double stick tape with the foam in the middle, so that they stand off. Gives a little bit of a shadow line. Adding interest, I think, like that did help. I always thought that was kind of cheating by telling everybody what's going on. Then I'm thinking, well, that's stupid. No, telling them what's going on is helping them understand it and maybe gain a little bit more interest in what you're trying to present. So it's a better idea. So I need to do that for 2 dioramas now. So a lot of this time, I think, is going to be designing that. I have these stories in mind, but they're very complex. There's a lot of stuff, and I believe there's an art, and I don't have that art. A lot of people that I know have that art of doing a very concise description that tells you so much. And that's really what I want to try to accomplish with these little signs and these little, I guess, legends or whatever around the diorama. I want to try to create something that will guide you through it with minimal words so that you can explore it, but you know what you're exploring and you figure out more in a deeper sense on your own. If that makes sense. I don't know. I don't want to get too, you know, I don't know. But anyway, but that's what I'm hoping. So that is one of the big things that I do. So some of the other things that I have to do, and probably that's one of the big things that I have to kind of think and have in the background of my mind the whole time, because that verbiage, that wording and stuff, I literally, as I'm walking around the shop, I'm thinking, oh, hey, here's a way to say that in this little scene. So that's kind of an undertow always in my mind. But there's other stuff that I will show you, and that's where we were going next with these slides. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to figure out what the heck I'm taking. You know, I think, oh, I'm so sorry. Whelans says he's got to run. Whelans, thank you so much for coming in. And have a great one and have a great weekend. Thank you so much. So I have to figure out what I'm going to bring. This is from 2022. This was for the Northwest Scale Modeler Show, where you're not just competing, so you can bring a lot more. But once I figure out, you know, what I have and I'm going to bring, then I think the next thing is I go right to these. These are informational placards. So there's a couple of things, and I'd love to talk about this because I think I've talked about it before, but I think it's interesting, and hopefully it's gonna help you if you're going to a show. And that is, I want people to look at what I've done, and I'm hoping if you're a modeler or a diorama maker, you want people to engage with what you're building. So you take it to a show and you want something interesting for them to see. So to enhance that, in just general for a viewer, setting it up, the placards, a little story, that kind of thing is great. If you want to satisfy kind of the other side of it, somebody that's maybe a little bit into modeling and is a modeler themselves, then they maybe want to know what kit it was. What did you do to it? What's special about it? You know, those things, you know, they kind of like almost judging, not judging, but almost the requirements of judging, but not quite. It's just more of a narrative, you know, and say, hey, I use this kit or something like that. And then the third level of it, you know, is like when you go to a show. When you go to a show, you really want to have that stuff lined out. And the reason is when you go to a show that's a competition style show, your judging depends on what you've done. And a lot of that can be enhanced by just saying, well, that's photo etch, or that was an aftermarket this, or that is scratch built. Anything like that. Start building that data in your head, because this is why it's going to be really important. These placards are great. That's that kind of second tier. It's informational, you know, get stuff out to people. But it's right here. It's your register. When you go in and you register your model for the show and you're standing there, you know, you packed your stuff up that morning, you got it in the vehicle, you drove it down there, you went through traffic, you get there, you want to get a good place on the table, you want to understand where your table is, you want to know if you're in the right category. You know what? All these things are happening when you're at home and you're thinking about your narrative, you're thinking about your models, you're thinking about what you're bringing, you're thinking about what kits I use, you're thinking about what aftermarket, Edward this or whatever. That's the time to do it. I promise you. I promise you. And I think you'll have a better result. And better result meaning you're not going to be stressed at the beginning of the, you know, getting into a show when you're really, you know, worrying about placement on the table, making sure you're in the right category. You know, you want your model to be presented really nice, things like that. You don't want to be, oh boy, there's no room. So, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. You want to spend your time doing that. By doing your pre-registration, by getting all that information down and downloading the registration form ahead of time, doing it electronically, number one, it's a lot easier than writing that stuff in on the day. then you're giving the people that are judging it, the people that are seeing it at a competition show, the information that they're interested in. You want to have the kind of model it is. You want to have the scale, and you want to have the things that you did to it to include as much information as you possibly can. Now, in an 8-month build, if I tried to, and I'm not good at that anyway, but if I tried to do that while standing in line or up at the registration desk because I just got my form and I'm trying to put that all in, boy, gosh, it's going to be really difficult to get that stuff. I'm not going to remember the kit number. I'm not going to remember any of those I think details that can really help, right? So think about that. It's this whole workup to the show. You want to build, I think, how you want to present the things that you're bringing. It's not just setting it on the table. Lots of people do that. If you don't have a display, if you just have the model and you're bringing it in, that's perfectly fine. I think the majority of the models are that way, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you've taken the time to put it on display, build a diorama, whatever, you may have done it with a certain view in mind, right? Because we talk about view and eyeline and all that kind of stuff. So if you do that, you want to put your model in the most, I guess, best place that it can be seen as possible. Take care of all that stuff first. Build that story, get an idea in your mind. It's about this. I want people to see it here. It's got this thing on the side. Maybe I can get the end of a table. All those things are appropriate to kind of start thinking about as you're getting toward going to a show. For me, if I'm doing lighting, and I've done this many times, bring batteries. I try to basically set up for the show the whole time that I'm prepping for the show, but I literally set it up like I'm setting up, here's the day of the show. And then I take those things and pack them away. And that's how I pack for the show, right? That's from business travel, of course. Lots of people do it that way. So that has helped me a lot. And I hope that, some of that will ring through. So let's look back here real quick. So register, that's my number one tip. And now I want to talk about packing. So one of the things that I had an issue with was packing a diorama. I see a lot of folks using, these, and I had a picture of them there, and I use them too, and they work fine. The thing that I don't like about them, and I think it's probably a great design for whatever reason, is the sides are tapered. Now that helps for getting your hands in there and pulling stuff out, of course, for stacking and stuff like that. But it makes it hard for me to shore things and build things to kind of hold it all together. So I actually prefer to use cardboard boxes. And I like to use cardboard boxes because I can modify them and make them stronger, and it's very inexpensive. And it helps me kind of, I don't know, build a better traveling box for my dioramas. So, sorry, I've got a comment here. Sorry. Dancing Show Diorama says, morning from Oz. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for coming in. I'm going to lose my voice in a second. And then John says, I'd love for model shows to offer a little better display platforms. Just standard tables have everything really low. There needs to be some terrace levels or something. And that's a really good point. I think that I saw on the SMC Scale Model Challenge, it's really funny. It's like the same acronym. But anyway, Scale Model Challenge, I believe it's in the Netherlands. I believe they did have tiers in one of the pictures that I saw. And it was really cool, too, because the lighting was amazing. The kind of in this large hall, and it could have been an effect of so bright of lighting that it looked darker in the hall. But in the background of this picture that I saw, it looked like the lights were down in the hallway, and there was direct, there was like a bar of lights over these little tiers, stair step little tiers, and they were about that high between each tier, maybe 10, 12 inches. and there was like 3 tiers, and they were covered, nicely. And then everybody's little models were on top of them. Most of them were on bases and stuff like that. I thought a wonderful way to display it, John. Exactly, especially for shadows. I think we talk a lot about shadows because shadows are it's detail. And if you can have that direct overhead lighting instead of just like a hall light where the light's just hitting it from everywhere, boy, that is pretty dramatic. So yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really, really cool. So yeah, I think that is a great idea. But I've not seen anybody in the U.S. do it. I don't know. And as a matter of fact, that's the only place I have seen it was the SMC, the Scale Model Challenge. And then Mark says, I think Small Subjects was saying that stands were for the figure models. There you go. I bet you're right, sir. Yeah, because everything kind of had a little, like John Fisher does, the little base, Mark. I think that's what I remember seeing. But man, it was so nicely done. So yeah, very, very cool. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. So yeah. You want to, I was talking about containers. So I want to use these, and I'm showing you how to do it. I like to use these cardboard boxes instead of these containers because it just works for me a little better. So here's one thing that I was going to talk to you about, and here's a couple of examples. These were a couple of ships that I did, and they were like restorations. And when I needed to transport them back to the gentleman that I was doing them for, I'm thinking, how in the heck? Well, this worked out pretty good, and obviously it's not a big deal, but just think in these terms. The reason I'm showing you this is because a friend of mine in the club, John DeRoja, he's really, from what I've seen, done so many of this kind of packing because he does some amazing models. And very delicate, but very, very nicely done. And then he packs them all in these customized boxes, very similar to this and what I'm about to show you. And it's really interesting. So obviously I use hot glue in a lot of this. And then I also use wood glue. But what I'm doing here is I'm taking and making a lid. And what that's for is, and I'm trying to find a large, this is a very tall box. And what I've done here, and I don't have I don't know what I was thinking. I don't have an outside picture of the darn box, but everything was done inside. And all this is simple wood that I cut. They're triangular pieces and just set it, your table saw, or if you can find something like that. It doesn't have to be a triangular piece, but it's nice. I put them on the inside of the box, and then I went ahead and glued, the contact points and then stapled from the outside. And what it did was it made me some incredibly strong boxes that I could see the staples along the top edge there. The outside, I did put some wood on the outside. They were very inexpensive. These are little bumpers at the bottom of this box that help align the diorama as it's being lowered in there so that everything fits very, very securely inside this box. The wood makes it very strong, and it's very economical. This was not expensive. These were boxes that we just got delivery. We didn't go out and buy any boxes for this. So I'm really happy with this. Everything's put in there with hot glue. This is packing material that I got from shipments to us. I just hold on to it. And I'm really happy with this. So this is my method, and this is how I like to do it. Now, to lower this is another little thing. I need to make like a little cradle. So this is what gets lowered into that large box. So I made this little cradle. It's some 550 cord, tied it up. And I still use this today when I'm transporting Wolfenstein. That's the diorama in black right there. So yeah, I think that it makes it nice. Number one, that you've secured it properly. Think also about pack out. Man, that's I didn't consider that. It's kind of like my thought on when I have my organizers, my tool organizers. They're not so I know where something is. It's so I know where to put it away. Okay. It's just a little different thought because when I know where I can put something away, then I know where it's going to be when I need it. It's the same thing with the boxing. Don't think about how easy it is to box at home. Try to think of how easy it is going to be to box this stuff up in a crowded, kind of tumultuous show setting. Because after the judging, I want to say about 60% of the folks take their models and go. A few folks stick around for later announcements and top judging awards and things like that. And of course, the people that are maybe working there. But a lot of people do leave right after the judging of the show. I've noticed that. And if you're trying to get your things out of there, people are in a rush. They're in a hurry. And things can happen. So just kind of think about that as you're figuring out your packaging. I used to think if I get it in here perfect, it's all in my controlled shop or, my bedroom or wherever I'm doing it, the kitchen table, man, it's a different story when you're at the show. So kind of think about that. I think it'll make a little bit of a difference in how you go about it. John says, is 5/5 cord the real name of parachute cord? Yeah. I think that's what I don't know if that's the real name. Those are the 550 parachute cord, 100 mile an hour tape, that kind of stuff. That was military terms that we did. But yeah, I think 550 cord is just that. And I've got a spool of it you can see in the background of that picture because it's just so, it's so, versatile. And I used it for so many years. There is just like a roll of it. And so, yeah, works great. I made a whip out of that, which was pretty cool. I saw a thing. See, I just tangented again, but I saw a deal online of a guy that made a whip, just like a leather whip, but he did it out of 550 cord. So I made one. It was awesome, and it was just great. So yeah, it was kind of fun. So anyway, yeah, wonderful stuff to have around. But make sure you're all ready to go before it's time to go. Don't think, I'll just pack it up in the morning. Gosh darn. It doesn't seem to work out that way, especially if it's a competition show. It's a whole different thing. If you're a pro, I would like to hear your responses to this. What are your thoughts about packing and going to a show? I've only done it for a few years. And so I'm still learning, but I just wanted to give you what I know. So, and I've never flown with a model. And I know a lot of people have, and that's a whole other story. So if that should ever transpire, I'll update this. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of very, very cool influences of mine, and I hope you like this because these are a couple of gentlemen that I found online. One's in Thailand, one's in France, about doing more than just building a model on a display. I mean, I think I've gone ad nauseum and talked about, my motivations, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that was fun was when I started doing this during COVID, was when I really launched into the thinking I could do this, full time. And two gentlemen I found were very influential. So I want to show you their sites, and I think you're going to enjoy them. So first offices, let's go over here. And here. So World History in Miniature and Phil R. Miniatures are the two gentlemen. I think what I got to do is I got to go hide this, and then I got to bring up this. And there you go. So this is World History in Miniature. And this is a gentleman that I started watching in, I want to say 2020 or 2021. And Robert is in Thailand, and I don't know if he's a gamer or a history teacher or what, but he makes wonderful dioramas. So we're going to look at the next. I just got a tab for each of these, and this is just one of his fun ones. I'm going to have the volume down, but I'm just going to have it go through a little bit. And this is like cavemen. And the wonderful thing about this is, Robert's got these. I'm going to try to get a better view for us here. There we go. Um, Robert has this history thing, and so everything that he does is based in history. And so, in different places all over the world, and he builds these fun dioramas, and they're big. And he's not afraid to go big. Some people have commented on the stuff that I big. Oh, by the way, this is 1/72nd too. But one of the things people comment to me about is I'm not afraid to go vertically, and having tall stuff. Well, this gentleman was doing it before me, well before me, and I'd seen taller ones that very attracted, my eye. But this is one of the fun ones that World History and Miniatures did, and I love it. So I would love it if you would go take a look at his stuff. There's a bunch of other things that he's done, but doing full scenes, this was very influential on me because I thought it was really fun. It showed me that there's a place where I could do more than just that snapshot, and somebody else was doing it and doing it very well. And there's a lot of more stuff that on his site that he does. First Last says that cave is great, lot of color spread out, nice palette, especially for the scale, isn't it though? And that's the thing is, Robert seems, and I keep saying his name, and I shouldn't do that. I should say his channel. So, World History in Miniature really likes to get in there and do things that are historical subjects that you know about, sometimes you don't, and he'll find the pictures, or I'm sorry, the figures, and then build the scenery on his own. It's not like he's following a picture or something like that, because of course these are things that happen in ancient history. Maybe there are some paintings sometimes like that, but it's wonderful because he's creating these from reading it and understanding it. Love that. It is pure creation, and it's very, very fun. I really enjoy his stuff. Dancing Shadow Diorama, double sticky tape on the removable platform below the bottom of the diorama. They add commercial sewing threads, opinion. So double sticky tape on the removable platform below the diorama, and the commercial sewing threads. Are you saying, or are you asking about for adhering it down to like the substrate? Okay, so what I do on a platform is I put it on a piece of wood first, and then I'll put it like on a platform. And so I'm trying to make sure that I understand your question, but you can retype it. It's cool, maybe to clarify what I'm trying to see. So if you use double sticky tape on a removable platform below the bottom of the diorama to stick it, so I think that works great. And commercial sewing threads. I use commercial sewing thread, but I'm not sure what the question is on doing that. So please just maybe clarify that. I really want to answer it because I do use threads, commercial sewing threads. Actually, I have some here because when I was trying to pull off on the display, and maybe this is what you're asking, for the double sticky tape, I did use this. This is called Dual Duty thread, and it's for upholstery. And so it's really strong. A lot of people say to use dental floss, I didn't want the wax. Now, it really didn't matter because I did clear off all of the old gummy stuff to lift. Yes, correct. I think you're right. So so you can use double stick to put it down, and then you want to take it off, use this. Perfect. Yes. Thanks very much for clarifying, Dancing Shadow Diorama. So Dancing Shadow just said to lift it off. Yeah, that's how I would do it. And like I was saying is, this I was able to get like an Ace Hardware store. It wasn't even a specialty store to get this. The other kind you can get that's readily available is for jeans. It's kind of gold color, but it's really heavy. And yeah, you just put that back there and just kind of go like that. Goes right through that stuff. What I was thinking you were asking before is, mounting it down, and the reason I wanted to clarify is on the bottom of all my dioramas, you can't really see it, but the bottom piece of foam, I don't leave that bare. I always like to put a 1/4-inch piece of MDF, underneath that and adhere it to the very bottom. So then I've got a wooden bottom to the bottom of my diorama, even though I may have a bottom underneath it, like I do on this one, because it just really helps me to make sure that if I had to like do something crazy with it, I could, and it wouldn't damage the foam, because the foam is kind of delicate. But yeah, I'm glad you were able to clarify. So thanks very much. Yeah, so I think that would do it just perfectly. Yep. And I like using the risers. Like one of John's earlier comments when he was asking about the risers and stuff like that. One of the older ultimates is make your own riser. I started making risers, and I spoke about this a few times. I've spoken about it because I saw people having to bend down really far to look into my dioramas, because most of my dioramas, and all of them going forward, you have to look into to see some of the details that I've added to it. And when I figured out if I lifted it up, people have to bend down so far. Well, there you go. I said, that's what I'm going to do. So that's one of the things that you can do at a model show that will help your model stand out. Have a beautiful frame, a beautiful base for it. Now, I don't think the base should just be like, throw a pole there and, you know what I mean? It should go with the diorama. I mean, it's your choice. You can do it. But I think if you want to make it so that it adds to the diorama, it should be designed kind of in conjunction with the diorama. I really do try to do that. And that's just my idea. I'm not pushing anything on anybody, but I'm just saying it might work a little bit better to do that. Okay. So I want to go back and look at the other gentleman that I spoke about, and that's Phil R. Miniatures. And this is really fun for me because Phil R. Miniatures was the first thing that I ever kind of thought about for a large diorama. So growing up, I had seen pictures, and I'm going to just get this set up over here so we can go over there. Growing up, I had these pictures in my mind. This is Phil R. Miniatures site. And I had these pictures of these massive battlefields of, all of these figures and all of these little army, and they're, like pewter and stuff like that from movies and stuff. And I love that image. The image of Max von Sydow. Does everybody know who that person is? Old actor. Unfortunately, he passed in 2020. I looked it up before. I don't exactly knew, but anyway, I know now. But Max von Sydow in 3 Days of the Condor, he plays this like real quiet, real precise person. And in this real eerie scene, he's painting the little pewter figures. And that image just stuck in my mind all these years. It's a beautiful scene in a movie because it's very eerie because he's like the assassin guy, right? And so having that in mind, I always thought about large dioramas as these big tables and these big, massive battlefields. It's like, 1066 and Agincourt and you got the English here and the Normans and all this kind of stuff. And well, they weren't the English anyway. I'm not going to get into history because I don't understand it, but I liked that. And that is the kind of stuff that Phil does. Now he does gaming. So these are all like massive game boards that he does and all those soldiers like I was talking about. And it made me kind of realize, look, if I'm going to do a large diorama, I'm going to have to do a lot of figures. And the first thing I said is, I can't do that. The figures just throw me off. Well, let's look at Phil. So Phil does these massive, just, I mean, you know, this kind of thing where you've got these just, they're lined up. And they're all beautifully painted. These are all 72nd, by the way. They're just tiny. And they're all lined up just like I was talking about in those massive battles. But he'll do it from all kinds of eras. Here's the Civil War, you know. And I just love his stuff because it's what I always thought of, but he adds more to it. So it's really a lot of fun. So this website, again, Phil R Miniatures, wonderful stuff. He does gaming. He does these these builds himself, and then he's got a bunch of buddies that they get together and they'll go ahead and game on these game boards, and that is subtle, but that's my next diorama. I'm not doing a big, massive game table, though I would love to. And I may in the future. But what I want to do is I want to build a diorama that is for gaming, that you play in. I had that comment from a whole lot of folks during the building of the WW1 Trench Diorama. They said, boy, I'd like to play in that, you know, a game in it as a game board. And it just got me to thinking, how fun would that be? And so that is my next diorama. It's going to be a 40K, and I've talked a little bit about this already, but it's going to be a 40K Warhammer kind of game board, octagonal, but vertical. I don't know how many levels yet that I'm going to do. That kind of happens after the fact. As a matter of fact, I'm editing right now the video about doing the levels in the WW1 Trench Diorama. And that's something that kind of comes from when I start really getting into a story. And remember earlier when I was saying, when you're prepping for a show, I've got 22 days. So this whole time I'm going to be thinking about, you know, storylines and stuff like that for the dioramas that are going, because I have to write all those stories. Well, on the sideline, I'm doing the same thing here. As I'm going into a story, I'm just passively in the back of my mind, I'm going about my day and I'm thinking about storylines. I'm thinking about scenes. I'm thinking about things that would be fun. I'm imagining what is going to happen in space. And that's a very, very fun thing to do in a diorama. When I go to multi-levels and I go to looking at how things are going to interact and how things are going to play within a diorama setting, it's incredibly fun to think, well, heck, I can go into a dungeon, or I can go from the dungeon to the catacombs. Or, you know what I'm saying? You can go up and down. So you can start thinking of these little rooms, these little spaces in space. And I think that's something that gamers, some of these really complex gaming boards that I've seen, which there are many, and they are amazing. I think that is just fun. I build these for fun. And so when I thought about how to go into another one, kind of like Wolfenstein, where it had this singular story where it kind of worked its way around the diorama. Well, there you go. I don't know if you work up or down in the one I'm going to build, but I think it would be very fun to be able to work from a starting point, multiple people. It's a gaming board. It's not just a, you know, think about. No, I want to be able to play on this. But you start either at the bottom or the top and you work your way to a goal. And so I'm going to come up with a little game. I'm going to come up with whatever. I think it's going to be fascinating. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's why I brought up Phil R Miniatures and History Scale. Man, I got to go back and look at the name again. World History and Miniature, because it's a little bit of a long name. Because those guys really kind of got me into thinking out of the box and thinking a little bit further. And it's like, I love building a tank. Don't get me wrong. I love building an airplane. When I did the 109 for Wolfenstein, I had a blast building it, painting it, and detailing, all that kind of stuff.
but I get so into it, I want to take it further. I don't want to do it and go to something else. I want to stay. I want to linger. I want to think about the situations that model could have actually, or in a fantastic sense, uh, have been in a diorama, and then build the diorama around it. And I don't think of necessarily a real scene. I think of a fun scene. I think of something that I can build other stories around. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just the whole fun of it, right? So I hope that you can get some of that kind of inspiration from someone, possibly world history in miniature or Phil R miniatures, and possibly me too. I mean, wherever you want to find your motivation to maybe do something a little bit different, a little bit out of the box, a little bit, maybe it's like your thing, but just beyond what you thought. Because these are the gentlemen that kind of got me to think in that way, to think big and to think expansive and not necessarily in space like they do, because they have these big, massive tables, but expansive in scope, larger, bigger, more detailed, more enveloping in the story. Because the story has to be fun too for me. I'm not trying to build this thing so I've got this happening with no relation to what's going on over here. That is not interesting to me at all. It has to kind of have this interlaced story that goes through it. And I think that makes a diorama more interesting. I want people to what happens after that? We'll go over here and find out. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, let me see. From box and release to live from box. Yep, got it. Go for it. Ping says from box. Got it. I'm sorry. Hello, go for it. Ping. Thanks very much for coming in. It's wonderful to see you. Mark says Judgment at Nuremberg. Thank you very much. I remember that, but is that where he was also in, another movie from Max von Sydow? I think that's what you're talking about, Mark. Because I'm sorry, I just kept on jammering when you had commented. But yeah, Max von Sydow is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. John says, "What's your theme going to be?" Thank you. Okay. Does everybody or does anybody know Baldur's Gate? It's a fun console. Well, it's a PC game that went to console, and I played it on console. And it's a fun kind of, that down, you're over your character and you're going through these things. Well, you start out in a village and you go into a pub or a tavern, and then you go from that tavern and you access a basement level, and there's you got all kinds of stuff you got to do in the basement. And then you go from the basement, you go to some catacombs. You got to do all kinds of stuff like that. And then from the catacombs, you go to like some caverns. And it's great. It's just fun. It's like PS2 and PS3, maybe. I think it's PS2 and PS3. And it was just fun. Just hack and slash and monsters and ghouls and blah, 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 and skeletons. And, so I played in the 90s. Very, very fun. I'm going to mix that with an author that is my favorite fantasy fiction author, which is Raymond Feist. And Raymond Feist wrote a bunch of books, and it's all kind of medieval fantasy and stuff like that. But there's aliens and dragons and magicians and blah, blah, blah. And it's just really fun. It's complete escapism. And I just love the book. I started reading the series in the mid 80s and have been reading them annually ever since. Love them. There's some that I haven't read as many, but like the core books I've read every single year. So yeah, it's just fun. That's the basic thing. It's going to be medieval. It's going to be that kind of thing, so that you can literally take, Warhammer 40K figures, grab your own and play in it. That's the idea. But we'll see. I have to see how that goes. But that's the idea, where I've got a tavern on top and then multiple levels underneath. Because I've also wanted to build a tavern. So I did the pink foam deal in the past. I'm sorry, I've got another person came on. Dancing Shadow Diorama, sand covered pyramid on multiple levels for dunes. Ooh, I like that idea. I absolutely love the Mummy, Raiders of the Lost Ark, anything in North Africa. I love. So that is a really cool idea. I like that a lot because I love mummies too. And just the whole aesthetic. But I really do like where we're going. So John was saying, what's the theme going to be? I really do like the European Tudor style inn, pub, whatever, that house. I've never done the foam where I do the rock. I've kind of dabbled in it, here and there, and it's fun, but I've never done a complete structure, and I am thrilled. And that's most likely where I'll start. When I started on a diorama, I'll get like a vehicle or whatever. This is not going to have any vehicles. Might have a cart, but anyway, I kind of start on the top and kind of get the general idea that I want for the diorama, and then I'll move underground. And it seems like I spend a lot of my time underground and then I kind of work to the surface. That seems to be my method, and it wasn't planned that way. It just seems to have happened. And I do like it because it allows me to kind of block everything in, get all the main ideas and things like that for the diorama initially. And then as I'm working my way down, and then as I work my way back up, I get additional ideas. I get more details that I can do. I'm still thinking of the top of the whole time because it has to, work together. But I kind of try to concentrate my work, from the bottom going up. And I think that's fun. I still have this global look of the thing because I've already started at the top. It's not like I'm starting at the top and move my way down. When I'm halfway through, I have nothing down below, and I have ideas, but I don't have anything built. I don't know if I could do that. I would want to see in relation to what I have on the bottom to what I'm building on top. And what I mean by relation is this. If I have this level, and I can zoom in a little bit and really throw this thing in the toilet. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that. That's a little bit zoomed in. So basically what I mean is, as I'm working up here, I want to see how far this distance is from here and from here. That relation. I think that makes, I don't know, as you're kind of figuring things out, that makes a difference. The same thing goes here. I want to see where this is in relation to this. And if I started on the top and just worked down, as I'm working here, I wouldn't have anything here to look at, because I hadn't built it yet. So that's why I really like to try and, start at the top, move my way down, and then detail my way back up. And I've done that in the last 3 or 4 dioramas, I think. And it seems to work out, pretty good. The other way to look at it is work from the inside out, because it's easier to not have to reach past stuff. Literally. When I'm working on something where it's like a room, like Emma Carlos and Ichiro here, when I'm working on that, there was a bunch of stuff inside and underground to work on for Emma. Well, as I'm doing that, I did have something built, and every time I went to go do something, I just scrape it with my hand or my arm or something. I was breaking stuff left and right. So that whole idea of working from the inside out, just in a practicality sense of the word, really does make a lot of sense. So that's how I work. I hope I'm being that way. And then John says, stalagmites, stalactites, yay, and looking forward to the medieval buildings. There's so many great modelers out there. 2 of my big ones, and they're on my website: CW Modeling, Barbarossa Modeling, and many, many, many more. But those 2 gentlemen, those are my, great modelers, and how they build their houses. One was an architect, so that helps a lot. But man, just beautiful stuff. And I've admired that for so long that I'm very excited to try my hand at it. Now, the thing that I haven't really done is figured out how you're going to see inside of it. And that's big. I don't want it, explosions like that. It's not war. It's not going to be war torn or something like that. It is going to be a nice little pub. But that's also some of the fun of it. These are the challenges that you throw out down in front of yourself and try to figure it out. That is fun. That is part of why certainly I do this. Okay, so that is about world history in miniature and Phil R miniatures. And I hope you do take a look at them. I will put links to their websites on the replay because I can get in and edit all that kind of stuff. So, and I have their links ready. But if you look them up, I think you'll really like it. When I look at these things, I look at it first from out here, and then I zoom in, and that's really fun on both of these. You'll find a lot of detail, and you'll find a lot of general appeal, and that's what I mean by looking out from here. When I'm trying to figure out imagery, when I'm trying to kind of look at design and stuff like that, I look at it from afar. And it gives me that general scope and look. This is visually I'm talking about, not like thinking about it, but I'm just saying visually looking at it. I look at it stuff at afar, and that tells me I want to look further, closer in. These gentlemen also help me realize that. I hope that makes sense when you look, because again, on a big diorama, if it doesn't look appealing when you're walking up to it, you may not want to go further, but making it look appealing both from the large scale, the far away, and then when you get really close, there's an art to that. And again, these two gentlemen have that. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to move on from that because I got some more stuff to talk about. There's a young gentleman on here, Scott. I hope you're still here, Scott. He said, don't let me forget to talk about filling gaps with the TP and Mod Podge. And so I want to show you that. I do have a top down, and I do have some pictures to show on that subject. So Scott, I hope you're still here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up that camera because it's wonky. So I got to fire up this camera. I'm going to turn on this, and then I'm going to get some more lighting here. And what we're going to look at here is this is a little diorama that I did for my nephew a number of years ago, and it's called Eastern Front Ambush. And all of the terrain in this was actually done with toilet paper. And I say terrain, I mean just like the basic ground. I did add rock, but all the basic groundwork was done with toilet paper. And I had seen this done by Marklin of Sweden. And so I was so intrigued, I had to do it, and it works great. I since then have come up with this, which I keep on the bench. I don't want it to dribble. I don't think it will, but this is paper pulp, water, and Mod Podge. And I do about a 50% mix of water and Mod Podge. And I'm going to show you. Thank you, Scott. He says he's still here. Thanks very much. But I mix those together, and then I can use it for many, many different things. And one of the great things it's useful for is like if you're mounting trees, or if you're mounting a post or something like that in your diorama, you've got a hole to fill around something. This stuff is great. The first thing is it is permeated with Mod Podge. That Mod Podge will stick to all of the different materials you're using in your diorama. The second thing is it's got the wood pulp in it. The wood pulp gives it structure. That wood pulp, when it hardens and it has that Mod Podge in it, it's tough as all get out. And the third thing that I love about it is it's lightweight. It's not super heavy. It's paper and water and glue. And when the water evaporates, all the weight goes with it. It's darned lightweight, and it's not going to make a big diorama like this or even a small diorama like that super heavy like plaster does. Plaster's pretty heavy stuff. It's super dense, plaster is. And so it makes things pretty darned heavy, even if they're not very big. Well, this makes it very lightweight. So we're going to look at some pictures, and then I'm going to show you how to kind of use this mixture that I keep in this little container on my bench, because like I said, it's just great for all around stuff. So let's go over here, and I got to get this going again. That ain't it. There's a point where this will all become very easy. We're not there. So that is not where we want to be. Is that? No. How about them apples? So this is the base for that diorama. So there is some pink foam you see in there. And then I've got this big piece of, that is a plaster rock. You know, it's just like cast. Here's a side view. I put it together with a little bit of the yellow is the Gorilla Glue, you know, polyurethane glue that expands. So that's where I started. Then this is great. It's all blown out. Sorry. That's a little bit better. But what this is that is all toilet paper and white glue. Now, in this instance, it's not coming out of my little container. There's a great picture of it. It's not coming out of a container. In this instance, what I'm doing is I'm taking individual sheets of it, laying them down there, and then taking white glue in white glue and water, and in some cases dribbling over it or just painting it on. I don't want just glue. Just glue won't permeate the paper as you want it to. You really need it to you really need the water to get through the paper so that it makes this solid mass. So you do need to water it down. And then dancing shadow miniature chipboard. Yeah, I typically put underneath it not chipboard, but I do MDF, medium density fiberboard. It's a little denser. If that was your question, I'm sorry. I want to make sure I got your question proper. But yeah, that's what I use is MDF, medium density fiberboard, and 1/4 inch is usually what I start with. But then when I'm using this material, I can put it on there and I can shape it. There's a point in which it gets like clay. All the papers, the fibers themselves completely break down, completely separate, so they're not held together in a structure, and then you can move it around as long as it's wet. You know, I just kind of keep adding moisture to it. You can move it around and sculpt it. It does shrink a little bit, not dramatically, as all that water goes away, but for terrain, it seems to work really, really well. So back to our picture here. What I did here was I put all of that on there first. Once it was all on there, I let it dry, and then I started adding the trees. I didn't add them wet. Okay. So anyway, that is one way to use it. The other way, and I'm doing that here, I'm going to show you, is filling a gap. Filling a gap is great because you're going to have that a lot of times. Or like I said, if you're planting something and you have to, put it around the tree stalk. And I have to go over there and grab something. So I'll tell you what. Give me just a second. Man, I hate it when I have to go off camera, but I got it. I've got no choice. I should give you a subject and say, talk amongst yourselves. This is, remember when I talked about planning for your show? Well, planning for your live stream is probably a good thing to plan too. So what I'm going to do is show you how to just kind of plant this in the groundwork that you've already got applied. So this is one that I use all the time. and you've seen me do a lot of stuff to it. And what I want to just show is how you kind of break through this, because every time I'm showing this stuff, I'm kind of showing it as it's already been, or it's being applied, and so it's not hardened. Well, this is the surface, that we apply, and it hardens. And this is a great surface. I get a really nice surface. This again is Mod Podge with the sanded grout applied over it. So once I've got my groundwork in, and if I want to plant a tree, for example, what I can do is I do need to kind of crack through this shell, and it can get really thick. It's just like plaster, but this is like cement. So I'm going to make this a little bit big. I'm going to make it, like this, just to make it so you can see what I'm doing. Typically, I wouldn't do that because it's just no need. But I want to show you how this will fill in. So I've got my hole there, and I want to plant my tree. If I put my tree in there, it's going to hold up pretty good. I get my position, and now I just take my tweezers and I go in this. Now, this is pulp. I'm going to try to get it in the shot here better. Sorry. This is pulp. This is both toilet paper and paper towel. And what I've done is I've taken that and I've run it through a blender. And so it has really broken it down. So it's just the individual pieces of fiber. So it's pulp. It's also got water and it's got Mod Podge in it. So it's ready to go. I don't have to add anything to this. So I just go in there and I grab a little bit of it like that. And then I can apply it here and I can shove it down in there real nice. And it'll pack in there really well and really secure your tree. So now, once you get it in there, I'm going to grab this. That's not that great. So I'm going to get closer so you can see. Once it's in there, the other thing you can do is there's a little bit of moisture in there. Now it's sucking the moisture out of it pretty quick, this terrain. But one thing you can do is if you want to get some of that moisture out of there, you've got it where you want and everything, you just touch this, a Q-tip to it, and it just pulls the moisture out. Now you don't want to pull all the moisture out because you need that moisture in there to set it. I just want you to know you can do that if you've got it molded the way you want and you don't want anything to move. There you go. It won't take it out completely, but that will allow it to dry a little bit faster. And then once it's done, it's completely dry. Then you just paint over it. You never see it again. So that stuff is my favorite. I keep it on the bench for all manner of things. And I also do like debris on the barbed wire. And I don't have any pictures of that this time. I did show that previously. But one of the things you can do with this is when you hang it on some barbed wire, because of the fibers in it, and if you pull on it, the fibers want to kind of stick together. So it'll look like torn fabric. It's brilliant looking. So that's the other thing I love it for. I'll put it on barbed wire and it looks like, somebody's running through the line and got their jacket caught or something like that and tore a piece of fabric off. It just works great for that kind of thing. So it's one of those materials that there's just 100,000 uses for. Well, okay, there's like 5, I think, but I bet there's more. And I think it's really fun to work with. It really does. It's one of those things where you're looking for like this adhesive or how would I. It's just one of those things that fits so many of those little scenarios. So I hope that is helpful, Scott, because he had told me he wanted to look at that. So Dance and Shadow is all good. Your mix is actually a mini plywood or chipboard. That is what I meant. Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I just use just paper is what I use. So and like I said, it works great, and I'm thrilled with it. So that is the show for today, folks. I do want to talk about shorts. Sorry, see, I just do this. So while I was building this, I did a short every day, and for 8 months. And a lot of folks came over, subscribers and the like, and it was great, wonderful comments and stuff like that. And I've talked about this before. But then when it was done, I didn't know what to do. And we talked about this last week. So I had some great suggestions, and I kind of figured out, what the fill-in's going to be. I am going to do them every day. And for the next 22 days, it'll all be about getting these two ready for the show. And then after that, it will be, how I coordinate my editing, because I'm still editing and putting out my long form videos about the build of this. So you have much more detailed information about how this was built. That's those videos. Those are on Tuesdays. And then I'll just continue my shorts. And I think I have to change the name because it's not all going to be about that. So I'm looking for names to what call those daily shorts, because one of the things that works on the social media platforms, stuff like that, is it will tie like the title or the name or the image or something like that, so that people get used to it. It's kind of like the title of a show, Three's Company. Everybody goes to Three's Company. Why did that come up? I don't know. So I need to kind of come up with a title for my daily shorts. And when I have those, that will start being my daily short. And over time, then I hope that comes back and folks, want to or get a chance to see those, because anytime I do shorts, man, my numbers just go up. Everybody gets to see, and they're really happy and blah, blah, blah. Then I go down, or I don't do a short, and then my numbers they just plummet. It's just crazy. But it does help a lot with the long form videos. Those are being well received. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, because you're watching them. So that's all I got. Thank you very much. I do want to thank patrons. I'm getting a lot more free patrons, because on the patron channel, you can have free folks that sign up. I do want you to know that there is also a membership for YouTube, and I'm enhancing that. I've been talking about enhancing it for a while, but now I've figured out how I can do that. So I'm enhancing that as well. And so you can join those things. You can see other content, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. Because I'm trying to put stuff there that's unique from here, or previews of what's going here. So please check it out. I really appreciate it. I do appreciate my patrons. There are many of them on here today, so thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. You guys are great. Thank you very much. I am going to see if we got anything else here. Thanks, Bill. That helps a lot. Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it. I've been on board with you since you were putting lights on Oscar, Emma, and Ichiro. Totally impressed. You stuck with me. Thanks very much, Scott. That's great. And that's the thing, is Scott and I are like almost every day we're on the phone. Or not on the phone, but texting back and forth. It's really, really fun. Dancing Shadow says, thank you, Bill, and good night. Thank you very much, Dancing Shadow Dioramas. And we're going to have to go take a look at your site too. It sounds like you build, and I would love to see them. Folks, we got stuff from Neil Bullard, I think, live next week. That'll be kind of fun. And of course, more shorts about getting these two ready for the show. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. There is no group build tonight. I'm sorry. I've got a family event. I sent an email out to the patrons earlier. So, John, I'm sorry I won't see you tonight, but I will be here maybe this afternoon. You want to connect a little bit. But thanks very much, everybody. Loved doing the show, and really do appreciate all the comments, and see you guys again. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.